So we're going to start with the Mid-Atlantic work. And notice that we are diving right in here to this topic of wetland vulnerability assessment. And so I think we need to pause and talk about the relationship between resilience and vulnerability. So before I talk about how we have defined it, we would like to hear from you in an open-ended question, Mentee. What does resilience mean to you? Adriana and Joe, on to you.
Yeah. And let me just mention, if for some reason the Mentee doesn't pop up on your screen, you can just hit refresh on your device and you'll be able to get the latest Mentee. We'll give you a minute or so to think about this, what resilience means to you. After you complete the Mentee, you can also amplify your thoughts in the chat if you'd like. Joan will be monitoring. So we're seeing lots of great things coming in, recovering from a disturbance, ability to recover, a lot about recovery, being able to adapt, adaptation to change. That's a theme, ability to recover again, to rebound and adapt, to persist over time, adaptation to climate change, respond, recover, a lot about adapting and recovering and responding, ability to persist, recover from what? From a disturbance, from stressors we're seeing, from or absorb perturbations, and the capacity and probability to recover from significant change. This is really maintaining the metrics of performance in the face of short and long-term changes. Flexibility. We're seeing all kinds of really interesting variations on a theme, to be strong in the face of adversity. Here's one on community wellness as well. Respond positively to change, respond to weather challenges.
I'd like to also point out, Joe, that folks can actually submit multiple for these. Typically on the other polls, you can only submit once, but for these, you can submit multiple times. So if you have a couple different thoughts, please go ahead and enter them.
Yeah, and again, after you enter your Mentee, you can also amplify your thoughts with some more narrative in the chat. Joan will be monitoring that, so that's another opportunity. Anything popping up in the chat yet, Joan?
Not yet. I think everyone is embracing the Mentimeter, which was helpful. Kevin did make a comment when talking about the ranking by importance, though, and I just wanted to touch base on that. Kevin Dubois, he said he suspected priorities would change based on whether you're a policy person, a contractor, a regulator, or a homeowner.
Yeah, thank you, Joan. And we're seeing about community health and well-being, being able to bounce back. We're seeing more on persistence and be able to rebound from disturbances, absorbing disturbances, rebound and absorbing. Those are two very common themes we're seeing. The ability for human infrastructure and development and ecological communities to adapt. And yeah, here's one about having an auxiliary source of a water supply. And again, recovery from stresses, being able to move forward in the face of stressors. Yeah, there we go. Oh, they're moving fast. They're coming in fast, aren't they?
Well, I'm scrolling up, so just so you can see, so for folks can see what else has been submitted, I'll scroll back down.
Yeah, keep on keeping on. I like that one. Again, community engagement. We're seeing a theme arising around communities, and then some specific things like we saw the water supply and then decreased flooding. I think we're anything else emerge in the chat, Joan?
No, Joe.
Okay. I think we're
We're
We've
having
gotten
a couple more coming in.
Okay, there's one comment that just came in from Bill Williams. Community wellness is striking to me as it highlights the link between the environment and sustained community health and vitality, which I think are key agency objectives.
Yeah, and that pairs nicely with another one that's newly on the screen on community engagement. And then also some specific things like nature-based solutions and implementing best management practices, emergency planning and preparation. So I think, Jordan, I think we're ready to turn back to you.
Sure.
And while Jordan's beginning to open the presenter portion of this, I just want to mention to you that we will be handling questions through the chat, as Jordan mentioned earlier. Joan will be monitoring the chat. So as you're listening to the speakers, feel free to put questions in the chat. We will have some Q&A after the first two speakers, and then we'll have additional Q&A after the second two speakers. But first, Jordan has something else to present.
Thank you. That was super cool. You know, it's one thing to test out these ideas, but to see the diverse responses coming in from scores of people is just really, really cool. So what we can see is that there are many conceptions of what is resilience, and all of them are valid. So for the purposes of just being clear about how we have defined vulnerability and resilience in the talks that you're about to hear, I just wanted to define that. So this is the climate change community's accepted concept of components of vulnerability from the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. This has sort of been pretty broadly embraced. And whether we're talking about a natural or a human system, there are certain exposures, often from climate change, or it can be from other environmental factors or impacts, or drivers rather. And then depending on the sensitivity, get my little pointer here, depending on the sensitivity of the species, the community, the system, whether it's ecological or human, we have a potential impact that occurs from that exposure. Then based on the adaptive capacity of the system to either behaviorally, physiologically, or evolutionarily deal with that impact. Those two things, sensitivity and adaptive capacity, in our concept, determine the resilience. So from the perspective of climate smart thinking that we're doing, what we're trying to do is we're trying to figure out where management actions, either for ecological or social systems, can be adapted to either reduce exposure in the first place or to increase resilience by either finding ways to help reduce the sensitivity of organisms or to support their natural adaptive capacity or the adaptive capacity of our human systems. So with that, we're actually ready for our first talks.